we get a lot of questions too about toddlers. Obviously, babies have their own challenges, but once kids get to the toddler years, they develop a beautiful personality. We often say they're strong on will and short on skill. And if you have a toddler, you know that that's very true. They want to do everything, they try and do everything, but obviously their skill set's kind of short. So when it comes to sleep, we see this overflow a lot, where whether it's the bedtime routine and it's trouble getting them from A to B and actually into bed, or it's actually the falling asleep part. So we'll just talk about that for a couple of minutes in terms of the routine.
Yeah, they're spirited little people and we love them for it. Yeah. But at bedtime, we want them to, go to bed, be able to go to bed kind of quietly. So we always talk about, transitions like you mentioned. Often for our toddlers, they're born boundary pushers, and that's not a bad thing. That's just kind of how they learn to navigate their way in life. But when it comes to bedtime, we really need it black and white. That gray area can become confusing for them. So transitions are hard at this age. Just trying to get out the door in the morning sometimes can feel like, a job in itself. So at bedtime, they've had a long day, they're tired, we're tired, all of those kind of things. So can we limit those transitions to make it as gentle on their bodies as possible when we're doing that? So, often something as simple as just doing the bedtime routine in a common area. So, like the family room, somewhere that's calm and quiet, but can we do most of the chunk of their routine there to limit those transitions? So, putting those pajamas on in the family room, reading books in the family room, or puzzles, or those quiet things together. And then when we do have to make those transitions, can we make them fun? So their brains aren't focusing on the fact that they're making the transition, they're focusing on what they're doing through that transition. So we don't want to make it so stimulating where they're like, it's a party, woo, this is so much fun. But can we do something that's kind of taking their mind off? Can we tiptoe like ballerinas to the bathroom to go brush our teeth and go to the bathroom? Can we walk like ninjas? Can we pretend we're in a spaceship, going to the moon? Those kind of things where their brain is just distracted on that actual transition to make it, as gentle as possible for them. And then that last transition, and Brooke can kind of talk about this more, I'm sure, but, when we get to their room, we want their room to be ready for bed, dark, quiet, sound machine, all those kind of things to limit that last transition. All we're really doing when we get there is tucking them in and saying goodnight. We're not, giving a drink of water and reading another book, because often those areas, that grayness becomes confusing for them, and that's when we kind of see that stall tactics, they're famous for them, and those kind of come into play. So we always want to look at those kind of things when we're looking at our toddlers and their bedtime and how to make it as gentle as possible. And I'm sure you'll talk more about the I do. I don't know if you kind of experience that with your little one, but that's kind of a huge thing in our house too. So like, how do we not dull their spirit, but how do we kind of rein that in to help at bedtime too?
Yeah. And certainly the consistency of the routines helps, but you're right, like making it fun is a big one because you buy them into it. And then it's once you get into the room, and why we kind of suggest to minimize transitions is obviously the flow, just getting it. So trying to do it in the common area, like Loren said, and anytime there's a transition, there's room for error. There's something that could go wrong. So that's why we limit transitions like that. But then once it comes time to actually tuck them in, a lot of us naturally think about doing books in bed beforehand. And it's lovely. Like, I'm pro books, clearly, pro reading with your kids. It's great, that one-on-one time. But I would suggest to do it outside of the bedroom, only because, again, that transition of leaving the room can be difficult. In their beautiful little brain, it's, well, when is this going to end? I have no idea. Is she going to read 1 book, 3 books, 10 books? How long is she going to be here? And then it just gets to that point where they don't really want you to leave. And we don't want to leave either, because they're begging us to read another book or another hug. And who doesn't want to give your kid another hug or another book? Like, that isn't the issue. The drink water, like, those aren't the issues. It's that they know that that's going to buy them some time, right? Or kind of stall or kind of get them closer to what they want. But unfortunately, what they want isn't always what they need, right? If we put them to bed, it's because they're tired and they need to sleep. So that drink of water, yes, is helpful, but not really, because it's just delaying them falling asleep. So if you can give them a drink of water and then they go to sleep and it's not a problem, great. But sometimes that drink of water turns into another hug, which turns into another bathroom, which turns into another, right? And then my cup's not full enough, and like, it, right? It's amazing what they can think of. So yeah, so when you do the routine out here, fill up their attention cup, right? That one-on-one time, the rough housing to build that bond, right? Do all that stuff ahead of time. Then when it comes time to tuck them in, you've already filled up their cup, all is good, they're ready for bed. Give them a kiss, tell them you love them. If there's any protest, it's okay to come back, right? It's not that you just have to lock them in their room and, let let them cry it out all night. No, that's okay. You can tell them you love them, tuck them in, but then also reassure them that it's okay, that it's time to sleep and that you love them. And I've done it where I'll go say, okay, I gotta go pee. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and I'll come right back. And I'll come back. Sometimes I'll just do a quick check. Sometimes I don't even say anything and they're doing fine. And then if they are still upset, I'll do it again. Or, eventually they just fall asleep. So, and if they're not falling asleep, then why is that, right? Then sometimes it's onset issues where they are truly having difficulty falling asleep because they aren't tired enough. Right? So maybe they're having a really long nap and we're doing bedtime at 7 and they're just actually not tired at that time. Okay, let's bump bedtime back a little bit. So is it an onset issue where they're having trouble falling asleep, or is it kind of the behavioral side of it where they just don't want to go to sleep, or they're having trouble falling asleep without you, something like that? Because then that usually causes night wakings or early morning wakings because they kind of need that thing.
Yeah,
So
I think they need us to go to sleep, even though we know they don't, but it's just that association that they've built with it. And then I think, like you touched on too, that onset part of it, we also look at, blue light and things like that too. TV, kind of that light mimics the similar light of the day. So it's actually, inhibits our melatonin production. So if our kids are watching TV too close to bedtime, that can kind of delay that onset too. So we like to say to remove it an hour or two before bedtime, just to kind of check that off our list. Same with night lights. At this age, I would say toddlers sometimes like night lights in their room, but we really want to avoid that blue light, green light, and that bright white light, because again, those are just melatonin kind of blockers, and they inhibit that falling asleep, and kind of can, I don't know if you've ever been in your room. In my room, we have a TV, but that little red light on the TV, even though it's small, it's really quite bright. So, with our toddlers, those night lights can be quite bright. And so if they're the wrong light color, we want to stick to more of those amber tones, just so if they need one, that's okay. But let's look at how bright it is. Let's kind of, put something in front of it if it's super bright, and just really avoid those blue lights to help with that onset of sleep too. Because, it's all those factors.
it's true. And you talking about that made me think of a feed. So a lot of times in these toddler years, we still think that they maybe need a snack before bed. So if you have a toddler and they're having a hard time falling asleep and they are getting a bottle or a snack before bed, there is a chance that there is a correlation there. So an easy solution would be to remove it, not offer the bottle kind of right before bed, because sometimes that association causes them to think they need it to fall asleep or think they need it when they wake up. So we could just remove it, because at this age, for calorie wise, they don't need kind of that sustenance. You could transition if you really felt they needed a snack, obviously, to giving them something healthier earlier on. But otherwise, yeah, removing the feed can be a key to this puzzle kind of too, to help with that onset issue as well.
Yeah, for sure.